Hello guys, so today I want to tell you what Distant Worlds universe is. This is a really special strategy game, I must say, and it's one I feel like not enough gamers really know about. So let's talk about this. Distant Worlds universe is your semi-standard 4X game in space. The most common setting really for 4X games. If you don't know what that means, we'll talk about it when we get into the game. But I want to show you what it's like when you actually start a game. So Distant Worlds is the game. Universe is an expansion to the game. When you buy Distant Worlds Universe, you're buying the game and every expansion for it that has ever been released. And it comes with a series of stories, new scenarios, gameplay methods, you name it. In this current, final version, they made a second game now, so their focus is away from here now, but you can play as a standard empire, which is just the base gameplay. You can also play as a pirate faction, which is very, very different gameplay. You want your standard 4X affair, you want to play a standard empire. You play as a pirate faction, that is mostly military. There's some diplomacy to it as well, offering protection contracts, just thinking kind of out of the box. It's a neat way to spice things up. You can have an introductory game that is intended to kind of let you learn things. There's also tutorials that you can find just here as well that will actually generate a little tutorial game to teach you things, and I do recommend doing them because it is a very complicated game that we are working with here. Now, if you're experienced with 4X games, then you probably know and hopefully agree with me that the best way to start any of these is to just customize your own galaxy with your own content. But if this is too overwhelming to you, then you're going to be using one of these presets up here, and they are different. The pirate faction, the Age of the Shadows, this is a start that you would want to do if you wish to play as a pirate and get that kind of gameplay, because it'll put you in kind of a scenario where pirates are actually really powerful and standard empires are not, and that's how you're going to thrive. If you want to live in that same thing as a standard empire, which is just way worse, then you want the one beside it, Standard Empire in the Age of Shadows. The Classic Era, this is kind of your base game. If you want to see what the game was like at the very beginning and have as little story scripted events kind of getting in your way and making things crazy, this is what you want. The Return of the Shock Turi, I feel like, is one of the most popular additions, at least from my perception. This adds a bit of a, without spoiling much, kind of a Mass Effect storyline to the game, let's say. And so if you want to see that, one of the most popular expansions, I would say, to the game, then you'll maybe want to start with this. If you want everything that you have paid for in the game, then you're going to want the Legend start. And then the Ancient Galaxy is actually just vastly different. It doesn't have all of these storylines, but it's still its own unique thing. And there's just gigantic, a bunch of these ancient empires. It's a much different start. It's very unique. It's hard to explain it, but you play this, you start this, and it's actually going to be vastly different than a lot of these others, at least compared to how different they already are to each other. So when you do pick one of these starts, especially if you're starting as a nation, you'll be able to pick your race. Your race is actually pretty relevant. There's a lot of different things to look at here, bonuses to that race, how they win the game. Different races win the game differently, and there's a lot of different, you can just randomize it if you want, but humans are definitely a nice one to start. You will get along with different races that are closer to you than ones that are different. Just as a note, a recurring note in 4X games, humanoids get along pretty well, especially with each other, but also with aquatic types. And then the more reptilian or insectoid it is tends to hate the humanoid types and the aquatic types, and vice versa. They also tend to be more warlike, whereas aquatic tends to be more peaceful. A lot of these stereotypes hold up here. Then you also have different government types you can pick, and I'd recommend definitely looking over these. They provide a pretty different gameplay style. It can change while you are playing, keep that in mind, but generally you'll probably want to be happy with it when you pick it at the beginning. Customize the size of the game, and then boom, you're off. It'll generate a new galaxy for you, and the bigger it is, the longer the game you can expect vice versa. Once you get into the game, you'll have this nice little pop-up to give you some information based on the parameters you've selected. You can speed up, slow down the game, nice and simple. A lot of your information will be up here, but there are also the planets themselves that have information when you hover over it. This is a very old game, Distant Worlds, the original. The expansions add to it, but they don't make it really the most modern. There are things you can customize in the settings. Even the UI is pretty old school. Our settings is literally like options. We have a computer here. We have our options. This is where you can see a lot of information. The game can suggest things to you, or you could just completely control it manually, or have it fully automate things that you just don't want to deal with. In your initial games, you'll probably maybe want to automate quite a bit, just so you could learn how specific parts of the game works. But as you learn the game, you'll probably find yourself automating less and less and less, because really playing the game is the fun part of it. But the suggestions can be helpful when available, though they can get annoying later in the game. There are some advanced display settings. There's like frame rates you can set, but notice there's not really a whole lot to actually customize size of text. There's detail if you want. You should be able to run anything on PCs these days here. You see it already. Yeah, it has to pop in and out, but that looks way better. There's star density as well. That just affects the background. Nothing else is entirely display. The footage you are looking at right now is in 1080p. If you're watching this on a 1080p monitor, especially with a higher PPI, pixel per inch on your monitor, you're going to notice everything's really tiny and hard to read. This game's not made for 1080p. If you're playing in 2K and 4K, I don't know how you're going to play this, really. So keep that in mind. My vision also sucks, so maybe you could see it just fine and I'm just crazy. We've got our nice little diplomacy screen up here. You know, you can see a bunch of information on your empire. A lot of things that we can manage. There is research. It'll warn you if things are being automated. If you don't want to turn them off, of course, you'll want to manually do this. This is what the research looks like. It goes in paths. It leads to things. Some of these are needed for certain victory conditions that you might want to go for. There's a build order screen for building different types of ships. But there's also, if you go to the construction yards here, we can see where we can actually build things in general. And then we could start customizing things. We could see the design of spaceports we have, but there's also designs that you can customize for your actual ships. Ships can be upgraded, retrofitted to like newer types of the design path. So if I design a modification of this station, I can actually just retrofit it and improve it. Same goes for all of your ships. It's really cool. Get a nice list of every ship and base that you have if you wish to keep track of all of that stuff. Your different fleets. If you're using automation, fleets are very, very good for keeping track of that. There's troops for handling planetary battles, but by the way, I mean, this is really just what you're going to see for most of the game. You zoom in and out to go into system view or out of system view. It's very seamless. You'll explore the system you have generated based on the parameters that you have set. There can be multiple presences in one system, but you'll get a color coding to see who really has the influence there to control different things. There are stations that literally just exist to mine and harvest resources from planets, asteroids, and the rest of it. But there's all kinds of things that you can build. You can kind of see some of this on the construction yards. You see there's colony ships, defensive dedicated bases, the actual construction yards, exploration ships, research stations. There's passenger ships. There's a whole goddamn private economy being simulated in this game alongside the national stuff that you control, or like the pirate stuff that you control. So there's actually private enterprise. So while there's, for example, freighters that you can move things around with, your private industry will be taking care of a lot of this stuff anyway. Can you micromanage stuff? Sure, you can. But your private economy, your private industry has its own amount of money and resources as well that it works with to get things done that will just go in the background and fill in for anything that you're not doing that you would expect a private industry to fill in for, which is an amazing feature that I wish more games had. There's a nice little history thing in case you just want to see what's going on that you can see. There's all these different resources that you could want or look for. Different resources qualify as being different things to different races. So not every race has the same luxury goods. You don't need them all. You just need the ones that are good to you. You can capture ones that belong to other races to deny it to them. You can also get them for yourself. There's colony management, and you can have not just your own species. If you take over a different planet with a different species already there, for example, maybe you find a planet that doesn't have a faction on it, but it does have a type of population already living there. Then they'll already be there. You colonize it, there might be a little bit of you, more of them. You get very diverse planets going, and different nations will be happy or unhappy in different ratios in your nation, these different races, based on different things like your taxes, how crowded it is, what other races are on those planets, what resources are available there, those luxury resources like I just described. Something you got to keep in mind. There's nice comparisons of different things that you can see: population, territory, economy, but also how close you are to hitting some of your goals. Very nicely color-coded. Nice to see where you stand compared to others. There's characters that you can assign to different things. There's actual intelligence agents, but there's also like ambassadors, leaders. You can have governors, things like that. When you're setting up how things are automated, the Empire policy screen's a very helpful one, because you can set up how a lot of this stuff gets automated as well while you're already in here. There's a lot of different things you can customize that I would recommend definitely looking over. But that is a pretty good just showing off of what this game is. I think, what is Distant World Empires? Well, do you feel like you have the gist? Hopefully you do. As far as 4X games go, which you kind of hopefully have the gist of by now as well, what a 4X game is like by seeing this. This is one of the more complicated ones. It's no grand strategy game like something like Stellaris, to use a very normie popular example, but it is way more complicated. It goes really deep in on all the 4X features. I might make more guides on this one. I do really like this game. So if you do have any ideas for guides you would want to see on this game, feel free to leave those suggestions in the comments below. I might go ahead and make a playlist and make some of those. But for now, thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.